share with us in your career journey, have you encountered a specific failure?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Neha. And Gaurav, thanks a lot for sharing that story and the feedback. I think that definitely makes a whole lot of sense. A story, yeah. Let me start with the story first. I moved to Silicon Valley, and in Silicon Valley, if you don't work in a startup, you don't do your own startup, you feel something is missing, right? A few years ago, I took the jump as well, left my job, and started a startup. Spent around 18 months on the startup, all the way from taking an idea, building a team, raising funds, acquiring customers, talking to customers. Um, After 18 months, it was not going where I was hoping it to go. So we decided to shut it down, and the idea was, okay, something did not happen what we were hoping to happen, and that was, I think, was the moment where I felt it failed, and I felt I was a failure, and this thing failed. And it took some time to understand the failure, understand why that happened. But that was, I would say, within the career, that was one of the moment where it was, a lot of time was spent, 18 months, and the outcome was not what I was expecting, and I felt that it was a big failure.
And what impact did that experience have on you, and what was the takeaway?
Yeah, so I think in terms of the key takeaway, initially it was felt as if it was a failure. And then what I started to do is I said, okay, let's look at the failure and say, why did this fail and what is failure? And that's when I started to go a little bit more into the understanding what failure is. And interestingly enough, if you look at the definition of failure in dictionary, it says lack of success, which I honestly don't like that definition because it's incorrect. What does even mean lack of success? I think the other definition is more closely where you did not see an outcome that you were expecting. So the way I see failure now is it's not about a person, but failure is about an event. So an event, an outcome did not happen or did not happen according to your expectation, and we call it failure. We can even call it something else. We can say, oh, I was successful in knowing this did not work, right? So the impact on me was a deep understanding of failure, a deep understanding on how to take failure and how to basically use that to move forward. I think in terms of further in the impact and my learning is what I notice is that the minute I accepted that this is an event that I tried, I spent a few years, the learning started to kick in. Then it was not about, oh my god, I failed, oh my god, this not work. It was like, oh, wait a second, these are the 7 things I did over the last 18 months, and these were my learnings. So my learnings were, hey, it might take longer than you expect, right? That was one learning. Initially when I started the startup, I was like, oh, in 12 months I'll be very successful in Silicon Valley, this will be great. I didn't know that it will take twice the amount of time. So I think those were the 2 things. One was the impact and the learning. It's totally shifted the way I started learning about failures.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, million percent, because as you said, success and failure are just outcomes, right? It's just an event. One is perceived very positively with accolades and appreciation. The other is depression, disappointment. But I think like they're just outcomes. And if we're unencumbered by the results and just go back to what we love to do and do what we're passionate about, we could keep going back to that, that house. So thank you for that perspective.
Right.
Thanks for
And I
sharing
think,
that story too.
yeah, one thing to add is the other moment of understanding was starting to think of it like a scientist. They don't fail.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
They experiment, and one experiment does not work, they move to the next one, and they're happy the first one did not work, so they learned a thing or two.
Yeah.
So it's just a bunch of experiments to keep moving.